Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Our first story is titled, My Aunt Tried to Use My Credit Card to Fund Her Lifestyle. It's been a wild ride these past few, and I'm still processing everything that's happened. But I think it's important to share my story as a warning to others. Family isn't always who you can trust, and sometimes the people closest to you can be the ones who hurt you the most. So let me introduce you to my Aunt Karen. Yeah, I know, the name fits perfectly, right? Aunt Karen is my mom's younger sister, and for as long as I can remember, she's been the fun aunt, the one who always showed up to the family gatherings with extravagant gifts, told exciting stories about her travels, and seemed to live a life of luxury. Growing up, I idolized her. While my parents worked hard to make ends meet, Aunt Karen seemed to have it all figured out. She had a big house, fancy cars, and was always jetting off to exotic locations. I remember asking my mom once how Aunt Karen could afford such a lifestyle. "Oh, you know your aunt," Moms had said with a tight smile. "She's always been good with money." Little did I know how wrong that statement was. Fast forward to last year. I had just graduated college and landed my first real job as a software developer at a promising startup. I was excited to finally be earning a decent salary and starting to build my adult life. One of the first things I did was apply for a credit card to start building my credit score. When I told my family about my new job and my plans to be financially responsible, Aunt Karen was especially enthusiastic. "Oh, sweetie, that's wonderful," she gushed over the phone. "You know, I've got some great tips for managing credit. Why don't you come over this weekend and I'll give you some advice?" I was thrilled. Aunt Karen, with all her apparent financial success, wanted to mentor me. It felt like winning the lottery. That Saturday, I drove over to her big house in the suburbs. As always, I was in awe of her beautiful home, filled with expensive artwork and designer furniture. We sat in her sunroom, sipping fancy imported tea as she regaled me with stories of her investment strategies and money-saving tips. "The most important thing," she said, leaning in conspiratorially, "is to always have a backup plan. You never know when you might need a little extra cash." I nodded eagerly, soaking in every word. Then she asked to see my new credit card. "Oh, let me take a look at that, honey," she said. "I'll tell you if you got a good deal on the interest rate." Without thinking, I handed it over. She examined it closely, even taking a picture of both sides with her phone. "For reference," she explained with a wink, "so I can compare it to other cards later." I didn't think much of it at the time. Why would I? This was Aunt Karen, the financial wizard of the family. If she said it was normal, who was I to question it? The next few weeks were busy as I settled into my new job. I was working long hours trying to prove myself at the startup. I barely had time to check my bank account, let alone scrutinize my credit card statement. It wasn't until about a month later that I noticed something was off. I was out with some coworkers for a happy hour when my credit card was declined. Embarrassed, I excused myself to call the bank. "I'm sorry, sir," the customer service rep said, "but your card is maxed out. You've reached your credit limit of $5,000. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "That's impossible," I sputtered. "I've barely used the card." But as the rep started listing off the charges, my blood ran cold. There were airline tickets to Bali, charges at high-end restaurants I'd never heard of, online shopping sprees at designer boutiques. None of these were my purchases. "Sir," the rep said gently, "it sounds like your card may have been compromised. We'll need to freeze the account and start a fraud investigation." I agreed in a daze, my mind racing. Who could have done this? And then, like a bolt of lightning, I remembered Aunt Karen, the picture she'd taken of my card, the financial advice she'd given me. No, it couldn't be. Not Aunt Karen. She was family. She wouldn't do this to me. Would she? With shaking hands, I called my mom. "Hey, sweetie," she answered cheerfully. "How's the new job going?" "Mom," I said, my voice cracking, "I think Aunt Karen stole my identity. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then, to my surprise, my mom let out a heavy sigh. "Oh, honey," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of sadness and resignation. "I was afraid something like this might happen." Over the next hour, my mom filled me in on the family secret they've been keeping from me. Aunt Karen's lavish lifestyle wasn't the result of savvy financial planning. It was built on a house of cards, fueled by fraud, theft, and manipulation. "She's done this before," Mom explained, "to cousins, to friends, even to your grandparents. We've tried to help her, to get her to stop, but she always finds a way to justify it. She thinks the world owes her this lifestyle." I felt sick. All those years I'd looked up to Aunt Karen, and it had all been a lie, and now I was her latest victim. "What do?" I asked, feeling lost and betrayed. Mom's voice turned steely. "You report her," she said firmly. "I know she's family, but this has to stop. She needs to face consequences for her actions." The next few weeks were a blur of police reports, bank meetings, and tearful family confrontations. I had to file a formal identity theft report, which meant potentially pressing charges against my own aunt. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. When I confronted Aunt Karen, her reaction was chilling. Instead of remorse or guilt, she was indignant. "You ungrateful little brat," she spat at me. "After everything I've done for this family, you're going to turn me in? I was just borrowing the money. I was going to pay it back." "With what money, Aunt Karen?" I shot back, anger replacing my initial shock. "The money you stole from someone else? This has to stop." She tried every trick in the book, crying, pleading, threatening, guilt-tripping, but I stood my ground. The woman in front of me wasn't the glamorous, successful aunt I'd idolized. She was a con artist who had taken advantage of my trust and naivety. The legal process was long and draining. Aunt Karen hired a slick lawyer who tried to paint her as a victim of circumstance, struggling with shopping addiction and mental health issues. But the evidence was overwhelming. Not only had she maxed out my credit card, but she had also opened several other accounts in my name, racking up tens of thousands of dollars in debt. As the case progressed, more victims came forward: cousins, family, friends, even some of Aunt Karen's former co-workers. The scale of her fraud was staggering. One day, about halfway through the legal proceedings, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a gruff voice on the other end said, "Is this the kid Karen screwed over?" Cautiously, I confirmed that I was. "Listen," the voice continued, "I'm Karen's ex-husband. I've been watching this case unfold, and I think there's something you should know." Over the next hour, Karen's ex-husband filled me in on the details of their marriage and divorce. He had been another victim of her schemes, left with mountains of debt when their marriage fell apart. "She's got hiding places," he explained. "Secret bank accounts, safety deposit boxes. I never could prove it during our divorce, but I know they exist. If you're going after her, you need to find those." Armed with this new information, I went back to my lawyer. We petitioned the court for a more thorough investigation into Aunt Karen's finances. It was like putting a thread on a sweater. Once we started tugging, the whole thing unraveled. The investigators uncovered offshore accounts, hidden assets, and a web of financial deceit that spanned decades. Aunt Karen hadn't just been scamming family members. She's been running a full-scale con operation, using her charm and perceived success to lure in victims. As the evidence mounted, Aunt Karen's carefully constructed facade crumbled. Her lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecution, seeing the extent of her crimes, wasn't in a generous mood. The day of the verdict was tense. The courtroom was packed with victims, family members, and curious onlookers. Aunt Karen sat at the defendant's table, a shadow of her former glamorous self. Gone were the designer clothes and perfectly coiffed hair. She looked small, defeated. When the judge read out the verdict, guilty on all counts, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. A relief that justice was being served, that all of her victims would finally see some restitution, but sadness too for the aunt I thought I knew, for the family relationships destroyed by her greed. Aunt Karen was sentenced to 15 years in prison and ordered to pay back millions in restitution. As she was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, she caught my eye. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the charismatic aunt I'd once adored. Then it was gone, replaced by a cold, hard stare. In the aftermath of the trial, our family had a lot of healing to do. There were trust issues to work through, relationships to rebuild. My parents felt guilty for not warning me about Aunt Karen's true nature, but I understood why they kept it from me. They wanted to protect me, to let me form my own opinions. As for me, I had to work hard to clear my credit and untangle the financial mess Aunt Karen had created. It was a long and arduous process, but I was determined to reclaim my financial future. The first step was to get copies of my credit reports from all three major credit bureaus. I was shocked to see how much damage Aunt Karen had done. In addition to maxing out my credit card, she had opened several store credit cards in my name, taken out a personal loan, and even attempted to apply for a mortgage using my information. I spent hours on the phone with various creditors, explaining the situation and filing dispute after dispute. Many were understanding, but some required police reports and affidavits before they would remove the fraudulent accounts from my credit report. One particularly frustrating incident involved a high-end department store where Aunt Karen had opened a credit card in my name and racked up over $10,000 in charges. The store's fraud department was initially skeptical of my claim. "Sir, we have video footage of someone using this card in our store," the representative told me. They knew all the security information. "That person was my aunt," I explained for what felt like the 100th time. "She stole my identity. I have a police report and court documents to prove it." It took weeks of back and forth, including sending notarized statements and copies of the court verdict, before they finally agreed to remove the account from my credit report. Meanwhile, I had to deal with the debt collectors calling at all hours of the day and night. They were relentless, often aggressive, and sometimes downright abusive. I learned quickly about my rights under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and started keeping detailed logs of every call. One particularly nasty collector tried to threaten me with jail time if I didn't pay up. I remember feeling a surge of anger and frustration as I replied, "I'm not the one who should be in jail for this debt. The person responsible is already there." To protect myself from further fraud, I placed a freeze on my credit reports. This meant that no new accounts could be opened in my name without my explicit permission. It was inconvenient at times. I had to temporarily lift the freeze when I wanted to rent a new apartment, but the peace of mind was worth it. I also set up fraud alerts and credit monitoring services. Every time there was a hard inquiry on my credit report or a new account was opened, I'd get an alert. For months, I jumped every time my phone buzzed with a notification, afraid that somehow, some way, Aunt Karen had found a way to victimize me again from behind bars. The financial impact was significant. My once excellent credit score had plummeted to the low 500s. I was turned down for apartments, had to pay higher deposits for utilities, and was offered only sky-high interest rates for any kind of credit. But I was determined not to let Aunt Karen's actions define my financial future. I started rebuilding my credit from scratch. I got a secured credit card, putting down a $500 deposit for a $500 credit limit. I used it for small purchases, a tank of gas here, a grocery trip there, and paid it off in full every month without fail. I also started an aggressive savings plan. I lived like a monk, cutting out all unnecessary expenses. No more eating out, no new clothes, no vacations. Every spare dollar went into an emergency fund. I was determined never to be financially vulnerable again. Slowly but surely, things started to improve. After about 6 months, I was able to get a small unsecured credit card. A year in, my credit score had climbed back into the 600s. It wasn't great, but it was progress. 2 years after Aunt Karen's conviction, I had finally managed to clear my credit report of all fraudulent accounts. My credit score was back to where it had been before the identity theft, but it was respectable. I was able to finance a used car at a decent interest rate, a small victory that felt enormous at the time. Throughout this process, I became somewhat of an expert on personal finance and credit repair. I started a blog to share my experiences and help others who might be going through similar situations. To my surprise, it gained a significant following. People from all over the country reached out to me for advice and support. One day, I received an email that hit particularly close to home. It was from a young woman whose mother had stolen her identity. She was feeling lost, betrayed, and hopeless, all emotions I knew all too well. I spent hours crafting a response, sharing every bit of knowledge and encouragement I could. A few months later, she wrote back to thank me. She had followed my advice and was starting to see improvements in her situation. It was then that I realized that some good had come out of this horrible experience. I was able to help others in a way I never could have if I hadn't gone through it myself. As for Aunt Karen, she remained in prison, serving her 15-year sentence. Unlike in movies or TV shows, there was no dramatic jailhouse confrontation, no tearful apology, no moment of redemption. About 5 years into her sentence, I received a letter from her. My hand shook as I opened it, unsure of what to expect. Inside was a single sheet of paper with just a few lines scrawled in her familiar handwriting. I know you think you've won, but you haven't seen the last of me. I'll get out eventually, and when I do, I'll show you what real success looks like. You'll regret the day you turned against me. Karen. I sat for a long time staring at those words, a whirlwind of emotions coursing through me. There was no remorse, no acknowledgement of the pain she'd caused, just more threats and delusions of grandeur. I folded the letter and put it away in a drawer next to the police reports and court documents. It served as a reminder, not of Aunt Karen's power over me, but of how far I'd come and how much stronger I'd grown. In the years since receiving that letter, I've continued to build my life and my success the right way. I've advanced in my career, bought my first home, and even started my own business helping other victims of identity theft. And you know what? The satisfaction of earning these things, honestly, is far greater than any thrill Aunt Karen might have gotten from her schemes. I still think about Aunt Karen sometimes, not with the admiration I once felt, but with a mixture of pity and caution. I wonder if she spends her days in prison plotting her next con, or if she ever reflects on the lives she's ruined. Part of me hopes that her time behind bars will give her the wake-up call she needs to turn her life around. But a larger part knows that people like her rarely change. So if there's one thing I want you all to take away from my story, it's this. Be careful who you trust, even if they're family. Watch over your finances like a hawk, and most importantly, remember that true success comes from within. No amount of designer clothes, fancy cars, or exotic vacations can replace the satisfaction of building a life you can be proud of. As for Aunt Karen, well, she's got about 7 more years to think about her choices. And me, I'm just getting started on my journey, and the future's looking brighter than ever. I've learned that the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about living well and helping others along the way. That's a success that no one, not even Aunt Karen, can ever take away from me. Here are my thoughts about this story. I just finished reading this story about Aunt Karen, and let me tell you, my mind is absolutely blown. I've covered a lot of wild tales on this channel, but this one just happens to be the once-in-a-million financial horrors that a family member knowingly committed. But hey, can we talk about how relatable the start of this story is? I mean, we've all had that one family member who seems to have it all figured out, right? The cool aunt or uncle who always shows up with the best gifts and the most exciting stories. I don't think there's a rhythm to them at all. Really, always talking about his latest business venture or showing off his new sports car. But Aunt Karen, she takes it to a whole new level. I mean, identity theft is bad enough, but to do it to your own nephew, that's cold, Karen, ice cold. And the way she just shrugged it off when confronted, I was just borrowing the money. Yeah, and I'm just borrowing this Lamborghini I hotwired. No big deal, right? What really got me, though, was how deep this rabbit hole went. It wasn't just a one-time thing or a moment of weakness. This was Aunt Karen's whole lifestyle. She'd been running this con for years, scamming friends, family, probably the mailman too, if she could have figured out how. And can we talk about that courtroom scene? I was on the edge of my seat reading that part. I could practically hear the dramatic music swelling as the verdict was read. Guilty on all counts. Take that, Aunt Karen. But then, that moment when she looked at her nephew, man, that hit me right in the feels. For a second, you could see the person she used to be, or at least the person everyone thought she was. It's a reminder that even the bad guys in our lives are still human, you know? But you know what impressed me the most? How he turned his whole nightmare into something positive. Starting a blog, helping other victims, becoming a personal finance guru. Talk about making lemonade out of lemons. This guy took a situation that could have broken him and used it to build himself up even stronger. That's some real-life superhero origin story stuff right there. And that letter from Aunt Karen at the end, oof, talk about chills. No remorse, no apology, just more threats and delusions. It's sad, really. You'd hope that after all of that time in prison, she'd have some kind of epiphany, but I guess some people are just wired differently. You know, reading this story really made me think about trust and family. We're always told that blood is thicker than water, that family is everything. But sometimes the people who are supposed to have our backs are the ones holding the knife. It's a tough lesson to learn, but an important one.
And now, guys, we will move on to the second story of the video. Please like the video if you have enjoyed it so far. The story starts like this.
My wife's ex tried to sabotage our relationship with fake scandals. My name is Jack, and this is the story of how my wife's ex-boyfriend tried to tear our marriage apart with a series of increasingly outrageous lies and fake scandals. It's been a crazy experience, but I'm sharing this to show that love and truth can overcome even the most determined efforts to destroy our relationship. I met Rosalind a few years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue. She was funny, smart, and beautiful with long brown hair and a smile that lit up the room. We hit it off immediately, talking for hours about everything from our favorite books to our dreams for the future. By the end of the night, I knew I wanted to see her again. Our relationship progressed quickly. Within a few months, we were practically inseparable. Rosalind told me about her ex-boyfriend, Hunter. Early on, they dated for 2 years in college, but broke up when Hunter cheated on her. She assured me it was ancient history, and I had no reason to doubt her. Fast forward 2 years, and I was down on one knee proposing to Rosalind in the same park where we had our first date. She said yes, and we were both over the moon. We started planning our wedding, excited to begin our life together. That's when the trouble started. It began innocently enough. About a month after our engagement, Rosalind came home from work looking upset. She told me she had run into Hunter, who had congratulated her on our engagement, but something felt off. He had this weird smirk, like he knew something she didn't. I tried to reassure her that it was probably nothing, just him being jealous. Little did we know this encounter was just the beginning. A week later, Rosalind received an anonymous email at work. The sender claimed to have proof that I was cheating on her with multiple women. Rosalind immediately showed me the email, her hands shaking. I was shocked and vehemently denied the accusations. We decided to ignore the email, chalking it up to a cruel prank. But it was only the first in a series of increasingly elaborate attempts to drive us apart. Next came the fake social media profiles. Someone created accounts in my name on various platforms filled with flirtatious messages to other women. The profiles used my photos and included details about my life that weren't public knowledge. When Rosalind discovered these profiles, she was visibly shaken. I was equally baffled and increasingly angry. We reported the fake profiles and had them taken down, but the damage was done. I could see Rosalind struggling to trust me, despite her best efforts. Things escalated quickly when Rosalind's friends started receiving messages from an unknown number, claiming to be one of my other women. The messages included fabricated details about our supposed affair, even mentioning a birthmark on my shoulder that few people knew about. Rosalind's best friend, one that had known her since forever, confronted us about the messages, and I could see the doubt creeping into Rosalind's eyes as I tried to explain that it was all a lie. As the weeks went by, the attacks became more frequent and more elaborate. Fake receipts for jewelry I supposedly bought for other women, doctored photos showing me in compromising positions with faceless women, even a fake pregnancy test sent to our home address with a note claiming I was the father. But Hunter, as we would later discover, was just getting started. His next move was to create a fake online dating profile for me. He used my photos and information to set up an account on a popular dating app. He then used this account to match with several women and engage in flirtatious conversations. To make matters worse, he somehow managed to get my phone number and gave it to these women, telling them to contact me directly. One evening, as Rosalind and I were having dinner, my phone started buzzing incessantly with messages from unknown numbers. Women I had never met were texting me, some flirty, others angry, all believing they had been talking to me on the dating app. Rosalind watched in disbelief as message after message came through. I was at a loss for words, unable to explain how this could be happening. The situation got even more complicated when Hunter took his scheming to the next level. He created a fake business email account in my name and used it to send inappropriate messages to female coworkers at my company. The emails contained suggestive comments and invitations for after-work drinks. It wasn't long before HR called me in for a meeting about sexual harassment complaints. I sat in the HR office, stunned and confused, as they showed me printouts of emails I had supposedly sent. The emails were craftily written, using phrases and inside jokes that only someone familiar with our company culture would know. I vehemently denied sending them, but I could see the skepticism in the HR manager's eyes. They placed me on administrative leave pending an investigation. When I told Rosalind about the work situation, I could see the conflicting emotions on her face. She wanted to believe me, but the evidence was piling up from all directions. Our arguments became more frequent and intense. The strain on our relationship was palpable. Hunter's next move was perhaps the most audacious yet. He somehow got hold of my credit card information and used it to make a series of purchases at high-end lingerie stores and hotels. When the credit card statement arrived, Rosalind opened it, as we had always been open about our finances, and found charges for thousands of dollars worth of lingerie and several hotel stays in nearby cities. I was floored. I had no idea how this could have happened. I swore to Rosalind that I hadn't made these purchases, that my card must have been stolen, but the doubt in her eyes was unmistakable. How could I explain away hotel charges on days when I had told her I was working late or out of town for business? The final straw came when Hunter took his deception into the real world. He hired an actress who looked similar to the women in the doctored photos he had sent earlier. He gave her a script and sent her to my workplace. I was in a meeting when my assistant came in looking uncomfortable. She said there was a woman insisting on seeing me, claiming to be my girlfriend. Confused and alarmed, I excused myself from the meeting. In the reception area, I found an attractive blonde woman I had never seen before. Before I could say anything, she ran up to me, threw her arms around me, and kissed me full on the lips. I pushed her away, completely shocked. "Who are you? What are you doing?" I demanded. The woman looked hurt and confused. "Jack, baby, what do you mean? It's me. We've been seeing each other for months. You said you were leaving your fiancé for me." I stood there, mouth agape, as my colleagues watched the scene unfold. I vehemently denied knowing her, but the damage was done. Word spread quickly through the office, and by the end of the day, everyone was talking about my supposed affair. To make matters worse, someone, Hunter, of course, though we didn't know it at the time, had tipped off Rosalind about the incident. She showed up at my office just as I was trying to explain the situation to my boss. The look of hurt and betrayal on her face when she saw the blonde woman still in the reception area was heartbreaking. That night, Rosalind didn't come home. She wasn't answering my calls or texts. I was frantic, worried about where she was and what she was thinking. I called her friends, her family, but no one had heard from her. I spent a sleepless night pacing our apartment, racking my brain for a way to prove my innocence. The next morning, Rosalind finally returned. She looked tired and emotionally drained. She told me she had spent the night at her best friend's place trying to process everything that had happened. We sat down for a long, painful conversation. Rosalind admitted that she was struggling to believe me in the face of so much evidence. I pleaded with her, swearing my innocence and my love for her. In the end, she agreed not to make any hasty decisions, but she needed time and space to think. As Rosalind was packing a bag to stay at her friend's for a while, I made a decision. I was going to find out who was behind all this and put an end to it once and for all. I took a leave of absence from work and devoted myself full-time to unraveling the mystery. I started by meticulously documenting every incident, every piece of evidence, looking for patterns or clues. I hired a private investigator to look into the source of the emails and messages. It wasn't cheap, but I was willing to spend every penny I had to clear my name and save our relationship. While the PI was doing his work, I focused on gathering my own evidence. I collected alibis for the times I was accused of being with other women. I got statements from coworkers, receipts from stores, anything that proved where I really was. I also started looking into the possibility of identity theft, given the credit card charges and the fake dating profiles. I also started paying more attention to Hunter, Rosalind's ex. Something about his behavior at their chance encounter had stuck with me. I began discreetly asking around about him, trying to find out what he'd been up to since his breakup with Rosalind. As I dug deeper, I uncovered more of Hunter's elaborate schemes. He had gone to extraordinary lengths to create a false narrative of infidelity. I discovered that he had been monitoring our social media accounts closely, using the information we posted to make his lies more believable. He had even gone as far as to hack into my email account, using the information he found there to make his fake messages seem more authentic. One of Hunter's most insidious plots came to light when I looked into the supposed pregnancy scare. He had not only sent a fake positive pregnancy test to our home, but had also created a fake medical report from a local OB/GYN office. The report, which he had mailed to Rosalind anonymously, detailed the first trimester checkup of a woman claiming to be pregnant with my child. The level of detail in the report was shocking. It included accurate medical terminology and even a forged doctor's signature. Another scandal I uncovered was a fake charity scam Hunter had set up in my name. He had created a website for a non-existent children's charity, complete with heart-wrenching stories and photos of sick kids. He then used this website to solicit donations, which of course went straight into his pocket. To make matters worse, he had used my name and photo as the charity's founder, even going so far as to create fake news articles about my philanthropic efforts. The most disturbing discovery came when I looked into the incident with the actress at my workplace. I managed to track her down and convince her to meet with me. She was reluctant at first, but when I explained the situation, she was horrified. She told me she had been hired through an online casting call for what she thought was a hidden camera prank show. She had no idea of the real implications of what she had been asked to do. She even showed me the script Hunter had given her, which included detailed information about my work and personal life. After a few weeks of investigation, things started to come together. The PI traced the anonymous emails back to a public library computer. Security footage from the library showed Hunter using that computer at the exact times the emails were sent. We also discovered that Hunter had recently lost his job and broken up with his girlfriend. Several mutual acquaintances mentioned that he'd been talking obsessively about Rosalind, lamenting that he'd let her get away. Armed with this information, I knew it was time to confront Hunter and clear my name once and for all. I reached out to Rosalind, asking her to meet me. Despite her reservation, she agreed. We met at a quiet cafe, the tension between us palpable. I laid out everything I had discovered, the traced emails, the library footage, the actress's confession, Hunter's recent troubles, and all the other evidence I had gathered. As I explained each piece of the puzzle, I could see the realization dawning on Rosalind's face. "Oh my God," she whispered. "It all makes sense now. The weird encounter, the things only he would know." I nodded, relief washing over me as I saw belief replace doubt in her eyes. "I think he's been trying to break us up, Rosalind. He wants you back." Rosalind's shock quickly turned to anger. "How dare he? After everything he did, now he tries to ruin my happiness?" I reached out and took her hand. "I know you're angry and you have every right to be, but now that we know what's going on, we can put a stop to it." We decided to confront Hunter, but not alone. We arranged a meeting at a public cafe with a PI and a lawyer present. We also invited some of Rosalind's friends who had received the fake messages, including her best friend. The day of the confrontation arrived. Rosalind and I got to the cafe early, nervously sipping coffee as we waited for everyone else to arrive. Her best friend was the first to join us, followed by the PI and our lawyer. Finally, Hunter walked in. He looked surprised to see so many people. When Rosalind told him to sit down, he complied, his eyes darting nervously around the table. Over the next hour, we laid out all the evidence we had gathered. The PI presented his findings, including the library footage. Her best friend and other acquaintances confirmed the messages they had received. We revealed each of Hunter's schemes, from the fake social media profiles to the charity scam. With each new piece of evidence, Hunter's denials became weaker. Finally, Rosalind confronted him directly, asked him why he would do this to her. Hunter's facade cracked. He slumped in his chair, suddenly looking small and defeated. He admitted to everything, saying he had made a mistake in cheating on Rosalind and couldn't stand to see her happy with someone else. Our lawyer then outlined the potential legal consequences of Hunter's actions, criminal charges for harassment and identity theft, as well as potential civil lawsuit for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Hunter's eyes widened in panic as he realized the gravity of his situation. After discussing it privately, Rosalind and I decided not to press charges or sue on 3 conditions. Hunter would sign a legally binding agreement to never contact us again, write a full confession and apology, and get professional help. Hunter agreed without hesitation, clearly relieved to avoid legal consequences. As we left the cafe, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Rosalind took my hand, squeezing it tightly. She apologized for doubting me, tears in her eyes. I pulled her into a hug, assuring her that there was nothing to forgive. We had been through hell, but we had gotten through it together. In the weeks that followed, we worked on rebuilding our relationship and repairing the damage Hunter's lies had caused. We showed Hunter's confessions to our friends, family, and my workplace, clearing my name once and for all. Rosalind and I also started seeing a couples therapist, working through the trust issues that had developed during the ordeal. It wasn't easy. There were nights when Rosalind would wake up from nightmares, convinced I was cheating on her. There were times when I felt frustrated, hurt that she had ever doubted me, but we worked through it day by day, always reminding ourselves of the love that had brought us together in the first place. 6 months after the confrontation with Hunter, Rosalind and I finally had our wedding. As we exchanged vows, I looked into her eyes and saw nothing but love and trust. We had weathered a storm that would have torn many couples apart and come out stronger for it. At the reception, Rosalind's maid of honor, her best friend, gave a touching speech acknowledging the challenges we had faced and praising the strength of our relationship. As we danced our first dance as husband and wife, Rosalind thanked me for not giving up on us, for fighting for her and for our relationship, even when she was struggling to believe. I promised her that I would always fight for us, no matter what. It's been 2 years since our wedding, and life has settled into a beautiful rhythm. Rosalind and I are stronger than ever, our trust in each other unshakable. We've even started talking about having kids. As for Hunter, we heard through mutual friends that he did follow through on getting therapy. Last we heard, he had moved to another state for a fresh start. Part of me hopes he's found peace and learn from his mistakes. Looking back on everything we went through, I'm amazed at how close we came to losing it all. But I'm also grateful in a way. This experience taught us the true value of trust, communication, and fighting for what you love. It showed us that our bond was strong enough to withstand even the most determined efforts to break it. To anyone out there facing similar challenges in their relationship, I say this: don't give up. If you have love and trust as your foundation, you can overcome anything. It won't be easy, and there will be times when you want to throw in the towel. But if what you have is real, it's worth fighting for. Rosalind and I fought for our love, and we won. Now we're looking forward to a lifetime of happiness together, stronger and more in love than ever before. And that, my friends, is the best revenge of all. Here are my thoughts about the story. Dudettes. Hunter, this dude is like the evil mastermind of ex-boyfriends. I mean, who has the time and energy to pull off all these elaborate schemes? Fake dating profiles, hired actresses, credit card fraud. It's like he was gunning for a PhD in being a terrible human. At first, I was like, no way, this is real. But then I remembered some of the crazy exes I've read about on this channel and outside, and suddenly it didn't seem so far-fetched. But let's be real for a second. Rosalind, girl, what were you thinking? I get that all the evidence was piling up, but come on. You're telling me you believe some random emails and social media post over the guy you were about to marry? That's like choosing to believe a Wikipedia article over your own mom telling you your birthday. Then again, I can't really judge. Who knows? The situation must have been stressful as all hell to her too. So I can see how her willpower might have begun to crumble. But Jack, oh man, Jack, this dude's patience is next level. If it were me, I would have gone full detective mode way earlier. But I gotta give it to him. When he finally decided to investigate, he went all in. Private investigators, gathering alibis, tracking down that actress. Our guy turned into Sherlock Holmes quick. You know what really got me though? The way Jack never gave up on Rosalind, even when she was doubting him. That's some real love right there. I mean, imagine having your fiance think you're a cheating scumbag and still fighting to save the relationship. If that ain't true love, I don't know what is. But let's take a moment to appreciate the real MVP of this story, that private investigator. Whoever they are, they deserve a raise, a promotion, and probably their own Netflix series. They cracked the case wide open like it was nothing. Note to self, if I ever need to prove my innocence, I'm hiring a PI. Now, I gotta say, I'm a little torn about the ending. Part of me thinks Hunter got off way too easy. Dude nearly destroyed a relationship, almost ruined Jack's career, and committed actual crimes. And all he got was a slap on the wrist and a "don't do it again" speech. Come on. But then again, I guess taking the higher road shows just how awesome Jack and Rosalind are. You know what this story reminded me of? Those crazy soap operas my grandma used to watch. The ones where someone's evil twin would show up and try to steal their life. Except this time, it wasn't an evil twin, just an evil ex. And instead of stealing a life, he was trying to steal back a relationship. It's like a modern-day soap opera, but with more tech and less dramatic background music. But jokes aside, this story really made me think about trust in relationships. It's so easy for doubts to creep in, especially with all the technology we have nowadays. One weird text, one suspicious email, and suddenly you're questioning everything. It's scary how fragile trust can be, even in the strongest relationships. So, to all you lovebirds out there, here's a piece of advice. Communicate, trust each other, and if your ex starts acting shady, hire a PI and lawyer up. Just kidding. Kind of.
Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow.